Okay, so let's talk about CocoaPods. Okay, so I'm going to bring up Terminal. And I think I've already got it open, but you can always bring up your Spotlight and type in Terminal.
How do you bring that up?
The Spotlight is a command space. So let me do that again. So if you're looking for something, command space. I'm looking for Photoshop. I can type in photo. There's Photoshop. It's going to find all your files that basically have photo in them. So what we want is Terminal. You can also get to Terminal through the Launchpad, and I think it's in the other grouping. Yeah, there's Terminal. So we're also going to use TextEdit as well today. So that's where you get TextEdit. In fact, I may just go ahead and open TextEdit because I'm going to probably use it a little bit later. Okay, so we go back to Terminal. So the way you install CocoaPods, let me just go to CocoaPods real quick. So there is, so here's where we find information about CocoaPods. And this is also where we install it. And they have a little reference on to install. This is basically what we're going to type in to install. Sudo gem install CocoaPods. And we're going to do that in our terminal, which is going to install the software for us. Now, the one thing you'll need to be aware of is you're going to need administrative rights probably to do this. And I'm not sure, I think you would have the ability to do this in Mac and Cloud. I'd be shocked if you didn't. They very likely already have CocoaPods installed for you in Mac and Cloud. I had to install it last night on my machine, and I had problems. And it turns out that Mojave uses an older version of Ruby. So Ruby is another language, and CocoaPods, the installation of the terminal, goes through Ruby. And you'll see them reference, use the default Ruby install. When I tried to install it, I got errors. So I had to update Ruby, and I simply Googled how to do that. And again, it went through the terminal. And Christopher and Marianne will appreciate this, but this is not my computer. It belongs to South Mountain. And one thing we cannot do is update the operating systems. It messes a whole bunch of stuff up. So we have to, always have to take my computer back to technology services and have them update everything as far as the operating system. So I can't move from Mojave to Catalina without them doing it. So I'm halfway through updating the Ruby, which is kind of built into the operating system. And I started to panic thinking, uh-oh, here it was last night or late yesterday afternoon. And I thought I may have just trashed my computer. And I thought, okay, we're not going to have anything to demonstrate in our class tomorrow. I'll have to go use Mac and Cloud. Anyway, it all worked. It updated Ruby and allowed me to update or install CocoaPods. So if you already have installed, it'll basically reinstall again. So we just type in, sudo. So this is kind of like working in a DOS environment. For those who come from the old PC world, here's my prompt. It shows me my current location. So sudo gem install CocoaPods. And ask for your administrative password.
And FYI, on Catalina, it's not a $ anymore, it's a %.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to type the $ thinking it needed to be there.
Yeah, the $ is just part of the prompt. I wish they used the DOS prompt of just the greater than caret. Okay, so it says it installed. Now, the way you find stuff in CocoaPods, I found the easiest way to do is just Google. So I went to google.com and I typed in CocoaPods. And I was looking for a routine to do YouTube videos. Of course, give me YouTube's on on using CocoaPods, not what I'm looking for. So this was is this the one that I used? So this was not the one that I used. But anyway, I found there. You'll find a bunch of them out there. So you'll find a CocoaPod to use, and just need to know the name of it. And oftentimes, they'll tell you in the installation what to do as far as what the name of the pod is to install. This one's not very good. Let me see. Let me try Googling again. Type in pod YouTube this time. These are called pods. Pod YouTube player, I think is what I'm looking for. Yeah. So YouTube player on CocoaPods. That's the one I wanted. So you're going to find, it takes you to the CocoaPods org, and you can actually search that site for these as well. I just tend to use Google for so much stuff. And they'll tell you how to install it and then how to work with it. Okay, so now I know what I want. I want this YouTube player. We're going to start a new project in Xcode. So I'm going to say File, New Project. It's going to be a single view app. I'm going to call mine YT Player Demo. I'm going to create it. And then I'm going to close my project. Now we're going to go back to, well, I need to know where that project is located. So I need to know the path to get there. So if you don't know the path where you saved it, or you need to go back and reference it, you can always reopen it. And we should be able to take this project here and be able to say show in Finder, and you can find out where it's located. So you need to also know the name of the project too. So with that, I'm going to go back to terminal. So I'm going to change directory, CD, in the terminal. Remember the full path here. I want to go to my documents folder. So your path is going to be different. So mine is documents, SMCC, classes, iOS, and I separate those with a slash. When I press the enter key, it's going to show me the pathway. It's going to show me basically the beginning to end. So I end in iOS. Okay, so I know it took all of that. Now, if you want to, you can always do an ls. They'll do a listing of everything. These are all your files and your projects. So I should see in here one that is YT. I guess all the folders are going to be towards the top here. So there's my YT player demo. That's where I want to go. So back here at the bottom, I'm going to change directory one more time. YT, and it is case sensitive. Player demo. Cool, now it's showing that as my path. I'm going to do a listing again. And so I can see in that path, I have a folder called YT Player Demo, and there's my solutions file, my Xcode project file. I want to create the pod file. Oh, I know what it is. It's pod init. So I'm going to type in pod init. And then if we do a listing, I now have a pod file. That's a text file. So pod space init will give you that file. Now I'm going to open that file into text view, and you can either just go to text view and go to the location and open that file. You can also open files through the terminal. So I can say open -a, the name of the application I'm going to use, which is going to be text edit, and then the name of the file, pod file. Notice it popped up that file in text edit. Text edit now is at the forefront. But again, I could have just gone to file, open, and gone to find it. Okay? So this is the default init file. This tells the project what pods it should initialize when you open the project. All we're going to do is where it says hash pods for YT player demo, we're going to add the pods we want to use. Now, there's a little problem here in that I'm going to type in pod, and as soon as I press the space, it capitalizes the P. It's case sensitive. It needs to be a lowercase p, so I have to go back and change that. What I wanted to install, I'm going to put this in single quotes, was YouTube player. All one word. Pascal casing, each word is capitalized. And if you had other pods you want to install, maybe you wanted to use Swifty JSON, you would add that in here as well. If you wanted to do some graphing, there's some really cool pods out there for creating graphs or charts. So however many pods you need to add to your project, you can do that. I'm just going to close that file. No longer need it. We'll save it automatically. Now I'm going to come back to my terminal and type in ls. And then I'm going to type in pod. I guess I need to do that, but you can still see there's 3 files there. I'm going to type pod install. And it goes through the process of installing pods into that project folder, integrated them into the client. And now if I do a ls to see the files, you see there's more stuff there. I have a folder now called pods. Here's the important thing. I have a file that ends in XC workspace. And that's what we're going to use to open our project from now on, not the Xcode project file. Because the XC workspace includes the XC project, but includes the pods as well. If you just open your solution file, your Xcode project, you're not going to get the pods. Okay, so that's the extent of adding a pod into our project. Now, let's go back to Xcode. Before I do that, questions?
Tutorials somewhere to show you, because I got all lost trying to follow this along.
So I, of course, will archive this. I am recording. If you just do a Google search, and you're going to find there's a lot of stuff in YouTube on installing CocoaPods. Some of the stuff that Chris Ching does and Sean Allen does, they use a lot of pods. So I know they have videos on how to install. So you're going to find a lot of stuff out there. Even just CocoaPods.org, you'll find some good tutorials there. Yeah, you won't be lost for material.
Okay, thank you.
So if you just remember, install CocoaPods. So I'm going to give you the overview here. Install CocoaPods, that's the first step. Then create your Xcode project. Close that project. Go to the project in terminal, because you have to install the pods. I don't know if there's a way around installing them outside of terminal. There might be. But in terminal, you're going to go to wherever that project is. You're going to do a pod init. That'll create the pod file. Open up the pod file, reference the pods, and then close that pod file, that text file, and then run pod install in the terminal. I'll put some information maybe in the announcements as well to walk through those steps. Once you've done it a few times, because I spent last night playing with a bunch of different pods, it becomes pretty second nature. course, like anything, if you don't use it for a while, you're going to forget those routines. You might be a little intimidated using terminal because it's kind of a old way of doing stuff, but it works really well. All right, so I'm going to go back to Xcode. We're going to go File, Open, and I'm going to go find my YT Player demo folder. That was the last folder I was in, so it just took me there. So here's where I was saying we have the Xcode project. We have the pods that were added. And if we just open those up, you're going to see the YouTube player pod there, as well as some other files that it needs and folders it created through the install process. And then we have this XC workspace. That's what I'm going to double click to open, or just choose it and choose open.
If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the iOS app development cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.